Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Gathering. I'm David Ault, and this week I am filming in a place called Big Sky, Montana, right in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, adjacent to Yellowstone here in the United States. And it's quite something around here. I haven't actually been to this particular part of Montana before. And it's also an interesting time of year because it's leading up to peak season, which is ski season. And so there are many last attempts for the crowds, the athletes to come to this area and to participate in things like triathlons and other outdoor events. And so there are a lot of these people who are running races and doing things throughout the surrounding mountains. And so occasionally you will probably hear a lot of cheers, or you might hear, it sounds like a conch shell, somebody blowing like a clarion call. It's really quite fascinating, and people are taking advantage of the tremendous sunshine that will soon be met with a lot of snow in just a matter of weeks. So it's beautiful here. And who knows what sound will infiltrate as I'm talking to you. And the reason that I'm here is I am keynoting and teaching at a retreat called the Big Sky Retreat, which is one of the oldest established New Thought annual retreats. And last year was the first time that it hadn't happened in over 45 years. There's that sound. So it's quite something, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm a little nervous because there's quite a few people who are making their way here as a personal pilgrimage, and it's one of the things that they have done for many, many years in their lives, and so they hold this quite precious, and there's a lot of new people. So there's a beautiful hybrid mix of energy of those who are craving connection, wanting to get centered and find themselves after a lot of personal turbulence like we've all experienced. And so I'm a little nervous, and I don't take this opportunity lightly. And so I'm both in gratitude and also really practicing high noticing. What's interesting about teaching at events like this is that often you are asked to provide PowerPoints and other types of things that are related to what you're going to teach months in advance. And I've never been able to do that because I really throw myself into living the teaching of wanting to be the example of the principles and even the suggestions that are coming from within me. And I found my crowd here because they weren't too much of a stickler about that. They said, we would rather you speak from your heart. And so there's a lot of things on my heart. And as I'm talking to you, and as you may be watching this at its allotted time, is the same time I will be in front of a big crowd here. And so the topic here for this retreat at Big Sky is called illumination. And oftentimes I know that we associate that word with light and physical light. But as we were going around the intake circle, we were talking about that it feels as though illumination means to bring light to the personal heaviness that so much of our planet is carrying. And so I want to speak to you today about that heaviness and about what I am experiencing in my own spiritual practice as being something that has some depth to it and some support to it. So I go back to a quote from Baba Ram Dass. And it's not one that you're going to find very often in the Google searches of Ram Dass, but it's this. It's take what's on your plate. Take what's on your plate and transform it till it feeds you. I remember the first time that I actually heard that from a podcast, a talk that I was listening to of his teachings, and it really struck me because it was very much in alignment with, and yet another way to say, don't run away from your problems. Don't try to bury your head in the sand of avoidance and bypass and neglect. That each and everything, whether it is tinged with fear and pain or suffering, or whether it is expressions of joy, abundance, and happiness, that each of those things are teachers. Each of those things are gifts that are given to us in order to help us practice in welcoming it all. And so each of those things are sort of elements that sit on the spiritual plate that we are asked to not only digest and to be in communion with and to bless, but to consume it all. And in the consumption of all of those life events that are on our plate, to do so with the intent of transforming it so that it actually feeds us. And I find that people who understand that know from experience and from cultivated wisdom to not run, to not hide, to not bury within them the beautiful transformation that does happen when we can turn to or lean into the fear. Because there is a whole new classroom. There is sort of what I would call a mastery class, not elementary level, not the quick fix kind of things, but there is a very scholarly and sacred atmosphere that permeates within the cells and the vibration and the frequency of the intention, because it says, I'm here to be transformed. I am here to listen. I am here to glean, to accept, to notice all of the wisdom and the synchronicities, and to allow it to take me, to lead me to greater cultivation and greater application of my place in the world. And so those people that inspire us, those are people who they don't geographically move away from the issue. They turn to it. They turn to their wounds, not in a way to hold them in sacrosanct and identify with them, but to turn to the wound for wisdom, to glean from it in order that they may rise from the wound to help other people do the same thing. And that, my friend, is why we're here. We are here to take what's on our plate and to transform it until it feeds us. And I see the full scope of how that is true for every facet of our life. You know, it's interesting that there are people where money is just simply not an issue. They have no, what I would say, resistance to it. Theirs has been an environment, a saturation of skill and acceptance and just total allowing that that type of stuff is not their life's issue. And so they're good at it. And they go about navigating through the world with great ease around that. And yet, if you were to segment our lives into different, like, pieces of pie, those same people who are very good at that might be incredibly frozen in their pain and suffering around relationships. In fact, one of the reasons why prosperity isn't an issue for them is that they've run away from having to navigate through all the stickiness and all of the upset around the relationship and the fear and the disappointment and the heartbreak, and just turned their whole attention to the money part. And then there are people who have incredible relationships. They are like a love magnet, and you love being in their presence. And by golly, if they don't struggle every month in trying to find a way to take care of the basics, And then you can see people who have those same issues around health. And then you can see those other people who are so vibrant and so genetically proposed to athleticism that health isn't an issue for them, where some people go through their entire life, no matter how much money they have, with this struggle around their physical wholeness. And so you start to see that all of us has something that needs to be brought to that plate so that we can practice our transformation. So what does that look like? I think the key thing, and it's very simple, it's not complicated, that comes with that kind of transformation is to begin to look at it solely as a gift, as a teacher. It isn't something that you're trying to overcome. It isn't something that you are trying to power through. But that the thing that is on your plate, which in most instances is repetitive, it's a theme, a concurrence that is usually there. It's the thing that creates the knot in our stomach of worry and of doubt. And yet, if we can begin to transform our relationship with that particular thing on the plate, on life's plate, then we can begin to move into and fully enroll in that masterclass. And so what we find is when we don't make it wrong, when we don't try to run away from it, when we don't try to push it off on someone else and make it their fault for the reason that it's there, but that we look at it and we commune with it, and we find a way, like I've talked about in previous weeks, of flipping the script of our relationship to it. And we see it as a form of a gatekeeper. We see it as an angelic presence that is lifting us and helping us to recognize that God is indeed in all things, that the world is a divine, perfect pattern. So how do we make that tangible? All that I can do is I can talk about my current situation for a bit. So a week from this weekend in Atlanta, when I am back home, is my annual big fundraiser for the foundation, Kaleidoscope Child Foundation. And so everyone on my team has been diligently working not only in revamping and getting our website up, but in preparing to do this walk for education. And things have been a little, I guess we'll just call it challenging from the perspective of the human experience. And most of it is because certain resources and paths and people who were readily available to support this cause have not been. And when I was working with my team this week, we talked about something that is a term that is bandied about often, and that's compassion fatigue. And I thought, what an interesting phrase, compassion fatigue. Because it's interesting that when I revisit that phrase, because I've used it as well, but when I revisit compassion fatigue, I realized that that's an oxymoron, because compassion has no limitation to it. It has no weakness to it. It is a potent, high vibrational, eternal thing that is available to all. It's like grace, the amazing grace, the amazing compassion that exists within us in order to exude, to act upon, to speak, to live, to be for other people. So to call something compassion fatigue is related to the idea that people are tapped out financially. There's so much disruption that is happening in our world. There are so many things, from Afghanistan to the climate crisis to our own internal divisiveness within the United States, that people are more restrictive with regards to any kind of discretionary income. And so the plea or the ask that is always there. People are fatigued by showing acts of compassion towards all of these asks. So I talked to my team about that, and I said, okay. I said, so here's an opportunity. So we're at a position where we're not it's not looking like we're going to meet our goal for the year. Sponsorships have been lean. Donations have been lean. And yet what we know is that every time there is something like this, I'll use today's analogy. Every time that something like this is served onto our plate, we don't have to consume it in the molecular understanding of this singular dimensional definition. I don't have to take compassion fatigue and consume it just because that's what is the terminology and the acceptance by the masses. What I can do is I can take something like compassion fatigue and I can say, what does that mean? And I can begin to appreciate it because it's a messenger saying, let's look at other ways. Let's be willing to open ourselves up to new channels of good. And I also realize, too, that it's a fundraiser. It's our yearly fundraiser. It's an artificial deadline that we have created. And those things are important. But it also means that the ability for that which looks to be sort of a restrictive boundary is but a momentary blip in the overall intention of what it is that we're doing. And so I said to the people on our board and the people who are helping put on this event, I said, let's not be daunted by compassion fatigue. Let's not be daunted by the 25% of the goal or whatnot, and what are we going to do, or the lack of sponsorships. Let's look at this and let's tell the truth. Let's tell the truth that, yeah, perhaps there's a little bit of trepidation, but let's remind ourselves of the intention of the foundation, which is to bring quality education to vulnerable children around the world. Let's look at the intention of advancing those children and their communities with applicable life skills and clean water solutions. All of that is good and holy work. And so anything that is good and holy work that is for the betterment of all will find its source. Will find its source. And so what? If we don't make the goal by next week, which is the official walk for education, it doesn't mean that we won't continue to be able to do our work in the world. And so we give thanks for the money that has been raised. We give thanks for everyone who's going to show up. And we let that thanksgiving, that gratitude be expressed to all the hands and all the feet and all the hearts and all the donors that have participated. And we transform something like compassion fatigue, and we just look at it as an opportunity to go deeper and to go beyond. Don't accept or look at appearances. Trust and know that divine timing is always there. And so that's something that's just up for me. So whatever it is going on in your life that fits into that pie of lack or limitation, whatever it is in your life that fits into that segment of uncomfortableness or hesitancy with being vulnerable and telling the truth. So many people, we don't tell the truth because of the fear of what we think the repercussion will be. Somebody won't love us. Somebody will leave us. A job will be lost. And we start to find out that that prompting or that fear, which is on the plate, is asking us to look at how we have limited ourselves with regards to love, relationships, source. Because the fear is saying, this is the only way in which it's going to come. The fear is saying, these are the only people that are going to accept or champion you. This is the only person that's going to love you. And we start to see how ridiculous that is and how limiting that is. And so thank you Thank you, fear, for showing up on my plate to help remind me of the truth. So it pivots, it transforms, and we can take it in and let that pivoting nourish us. All things work together for good. All things. All things. Things. What are the things? The things on the plate. All of those things are working together in harmony for the nourishment of our good. And let us not forget that. And that's why a message like this coming from me and all of the other channels that are getting to you, all of the synchronicity and the voices and the inspiration that want to remind you of that truth, are consistent. And don't you love the fact that that whisper or that nudge or that call never lets up? Because it's not supposed to. That's part of the plan. By plan, I mean it's just a part of the human curriculum, because what we are is not the body, we are a soul that knows this already. And so all the things that are nudging us, all of the things that are arriving on the plate are a part of the thing that gets us home back to the awareness of soul, about self. Because if we don't transform the fear, then we stay identified with the fear. So, what is it that you're fearing today? Be it new, be it long-lasting. What is it that you're hiding, that you've just been too afraid to share with another? Where is it that you're not telling the truth because of the mental thought patterns and assumptions that you have created that will bring about an undesired result? But there's power in truth. There's power in facing the fear. There's power in taking what is on your plate and transforming it until it truly, truly feeds you at its depth. So never underestimate the potency, the power of the spiritual practice of writing these things down. Never underestimate the silence, the stillness, the few minutes that you can take for yourself where you do this exercise, where you go, what's up for me? What's on my plate? What's on my plate that feels too much? And then look what's beyond the too much. Look at the fear. Try to see if you can get granular with it and you can begin to understand that granular fear's familiarity, because chances are it's been there. I know mine continue to resurface all the time, but it's there for a reason. It's on my plate. A little nervous tomorrow about, will I be good enough? Will I say something that will be relevant, that will help people? It's out of my control. But the only thing that is in my control is to stay with my intention to serve and to love and to spiritually feed any and all people whose path that I come in contact with. So I hope you've got fed today, and I hope that whatever is on your plate in this very minute is being transformed. I want you to take note also of the text within the video today, because there is a couple of classes that are coming up. One is my annual Wisdom School, which is a beautiful experience once a month for 4 months. It's on a Saturday for a few hours, but we cover some really sacred ground that helps us get back to home, that helps us kind of smooth and slough off all of the illusion to really begin to understand the wisdom, the soul of who we are. Many people have taken it. I've been so honored and so joyous to see them all sign up for that. And I would love for you to come around for the next round. Information for signing up is there. And then starting very soon, within just a few days from the time that you see this, is going to be a 7-week virtual satsang, kind of like a book club, where I've selected a few readings from some really pivotal material. And I just want to be with you for an hour and a half on Tuesdays, for 7 Tuesdays, where we're going to discuss it We're going to look to see how to integrate it. We're going to pray, and then we're going to say, see you later, till next time. So it's a sweet touchstone where you can come and participate with me and revisit or maybe visit for the first time some really rich material. So all of that, all of the links, the 7-week thing is pay what you can. If you can't pay anything, just all I'm saying is just to email me and let me know, and you will get the Zoom link. I'd rather have you there than not there. And that goes with just about anything. Know that I'm here for you, that I love you. Bless you so much. Thank you for supporting Nandi Das, which is our nonprofit, our spiritual nonprofit, our ministry. Together with my partner, J. Ram Lentini, we continue to sit in that stillness, to open to the guidance, to let whatever resistance comes to the plate, to transform it so that we can continue to help feed all of those who are drawn to us. Much love. Until next time. Bye from Big Sky, Montana.